Hello and welcome back. So we left off with last time, got the wood filler all in place, and that was a week ago now, and everything is completely dry at this point. And so today I'm going to start with sanding everything down, all the faces and everything that's going to get paint. We're going to start with 220, then I'll kind of ramp up and get a little bit of 320. It doesn't have to be ultra smooth, but it'll make for a really nice finish once it's all done. But I'm going to get all that sanding done off camera since it's going to take some time. All the faces and everything, everywhere that's going to get paint is going to get this done. So these legs and here and this edge and the underside, all of that's going to get sanded up with up to 320 grit. So I'm going to work on that now, and I will bring you back once I am finished. And that point we'll be ready for caulk around the corners. Alright, all the sanding is completed. Took about 2.5 hours. And I only went to 220 grit because 320 really wasn't needed. So everything is very smooth. And there's a few imperfections here and there that I'm not worried about. That's a little ding that was already in there. Don't really care. This isn't a showpiece. I mean, it's going to be pretty nice anyways when it's done, but it's not something that I need perfect. So it's pretty smooth. So of course I got all the legs sanded, the face here, this lip here, and then this edge all sanded. No sanding done here or here, just because that's not getting painted. It's just going to stay like that. And now that we have everything prepped for paint, it is time to go ahead and get the caulk done, which should not take too long. Again, I'm just going to caulk the corners. I'll caulk this and this, that part there too. So let's get started on that now. And that's it for the caulk. All we needed to do was get all the faces, or all the cracks that would potentially be visible from the side of the table, really. So these, I mean, all those in there, again, never going to be seen. So now this will, once we paint, because if you would not have caulked, you would have seen the crack, obviously. So now once we paint, it'll just be a smooth finish all the way, you know, no seams or cracks or anything. Alright, and this is going to need to dry for about an hour, and then we can move on to the next step. It's finally time for paint, and I'm definitely going to be wearing a wet respirator because that stuff is extremely smelly. You do not want to be breathing that in for an extended period of time, so I'll be putting the respirator on here in just a second. And I've got my jar of mineral spirits, which is what is going to, it's oil-based paint, so you need mineral spirits to clean it out of the brushes, so it's all ready to go for whenever I'm done painting. And this will just be the first coat. I'm going to be doing 2 coats, possibly 3 if needed, but it should hopefully only need 2 coats. So a first coat will most likely not cover fully in all spots. So, but the goal is to get it in 2 coats, just because we have to let this dry for a very long time. So I won't be able to repaint this until tomorrow, and then once I repaint it tomorrow, then that's basically all I could do this weekend. So once this side's done, we're going to flip it over and continue on with the trim and getting the top ready for paint as well. But for now, let me get this respirator on and we can start getting that paint stirred and then brushed on. Alright, so first thing, why oh why am I wearing jeans and it's 90 degrees outside? Why? I had to come out here because I can't talk in there right now, because it smells like someone spilled a jar of nail polish remover. So it's all painted, as you just saw, first coat. When I first opened the container, it was the first, the top layer was dried, so I had to peel that off. Hopefully the paint is still, I don't remember how old that paint is. It's less than 5 years old, I know that. I think it's probably about 3 years old, maybe 4. So hopefully the paint still does well. I guess we'll see. But it'll definitely need a second coat. I do remember this paint needing multiple coats when I used it last time. So it's cheap, but there's, that's why, well, one reason why it's cheap. You gotta use multiple coats. I just didn't have any of the good stuff left over from when I did my kitchen cabinets, so otherwise I would have used that. Plus this stuff is gloss, which is, I don't really care for what this is, being a computer desk, but I would have preferred not having gloss. But I just didn't want to buy paint. That's all there is to it. So at any rate, I will be needing to wait a day for that to dry, and so for me it'll be a day, for you it'll be a second. So when you come back, you will see how it did on the first coat. So see you then. Welcome back. I actually put on a second coat off camera, so we're gonna go check out the second coat now, because you already saw me do the first coat. No real point in seeing all that over again. It was, the same exact thing. So this is completely dry because this was done 24 hours ago. It is glossy. It's looking good. Looking really good. So that paint did really well. I figured it would, even though it's about 4 years old. And I did look up online how much this costs now, and it's as with everything else, it was disappointment to say the least. This is exactly why I didn't want to have to buy any paint, and this is why I used this paint. It was because when I bought this paint in 2020, it was $25 for that gallon, and now it's $49 for that same exact paint. So I figured that was going to be the case. As with everything, the prices have just gone insane, and nothing is affordable anymore. So, like I said, that's why I used this paint, even though I didn't really want gloss on this desk. It was just not worth me spending that much money when I can use what I've got here. So it'll be perfectly fine. It's just a shiny finish versus, not having a shiny finish. So, but this looks really good. I don't even know that this needs a third touch-up coat. Like, I'm not seeing really anything that's missed at this point. There's possibly some little bit coming through in some of these edges, like right there. I can kind of see, I don't even think the camera's picking it up, maybe. I can kind of see something there coming through a little bit. But really, once this is in the room, I don't even think this would even, small tiny spots like that would ever be noticed. So I'm kind of debating on not doing even a third touch-up coat. So we'll see. I'm gonna think about that, and I will bring you back. Okay, so what I've decided is I am gonna go ahead and off camera, I'm gonna go and do some touch-ups. There are some spots here and there, like right here. You can see it on the camera where this end grain, you can kind of see. It's not fully covered with the paint, so there's a few spots here and there like that. There's some ingrain there, so there's just a few spots here and there, that need to get touched up. There's a spot there, so it's gonna bother me if I don't. but there's not very many. There's a few here and there, but not very many. There's one like here where you can kind of see through the paint a little bit. So I'm gonna run through, touch all those up, and unfortunately that just means more time waiting on the drying before I can move to the next thing. Maybe I might be able to let this dry for about an hour or two, and then that might be good enough for me to start doing something else. I mean, what has to happen next is I need to get this table flipped over and onto the ground so that we can start working on the other side. And I'm just afraid that if I start doing that, there's enough pieces that need to be touched up to where something could get bumped or dust on it, and then it's going to look worse. So I'm just I may just go ahead and do this touch up, and that'll be it, and I'll continue on tomorrow. I'm just trying to get this project moving along, and unfortunately it's just one of those things when your paint has to have time to dry. So it is what it is. Let me get this touched up, and then we can move on. Alright, it's completely dry after the third coat, and now I'm just going to flip it over, and then we can get started on the trim that's going to go around the top, and get that pinned and glued on, and then we can start getting the top all prettied up and ready for paint after that. So here she sits, and that gap on those two pieces of plywood is not too bad where they were joined together. But yeah, I'm really happy with how the paint turned out on this. Really good. Yeah, that looks very nice and shiny. Alright, so now let's go look over here. I think I saw some pieces already cut. So what I had in mind was I've got some poplar already cut here in strips, although this won't, if I can get it out. Okay, there we go. So one strip, they're not the same width. But that's the idea I had for the trim to go around. So let me close this. It's scalding hot out there compared to in here. Alright, so I don't know which one I like better. Let me get you back in the stand really quick. Alright, now let's see which one would look a little bit better. So that one, which would have that much of a lip, versus this one, which would be a little bit more of a lip. Honestly, it really doesn't matter to me how much of a lip this has. I like this one. So I think we're going to go with this width, which means this one's going to have to get trimmed. But for now, this one should work, because all I'm going to do is do the two ends first. So I'm going to do the two ends first, get those cut to length. Get this out of the way. Get those cut to length. I'm going to get them pinned on with brad nails, and then and glue, and then nails, and then we're gonna get them clamped and get those two ends done, and then once that's dry, I'm gonna get these other two ends done. So let me get everything set up for that, and we'll be back in just a second. Alright, so of course, every project has to be more difficult than you plan. So I went to measure out these pieces that I just cut, just to see how flush they were, make sure that they were flush on the ends, and of course the other side down there was perfect. This side, I went to put it up here, and I'm like, hey, there's a gap here. I don't know that you can see it from this angle. Let me see if I can adjust. Alright, so let me see. You can kind of see the end of it. I cannot angle the camera down any further very easily from this position, but there's a gap down here. And I found out that I have no idea how it happened, because this was already pre-cut to be for the table before. So when I cut it when I cut it before, it should have already been, you know, square and everything, but for whatever reason it's not. So this is a very straight piece of wood, and see how the middle bows out. So for whatever reason the middle is 1/8 of an inch further out than the two ends. Like I said, I have no idea how that happened. I mean, obviously it's my fault for not double checking, triple checking that before I got this far. All the others ends sides are perfect because they were cut on the table saw for this project. So like I said, I have no idea how this happened, but I've got to fix this. I mean, I could just leave it like this and then kind of bend this to fit, but I really don't want to do that. So there's really no good answer for this, because this is, I guess what I could do is go through the pain of taking the top off, which would mean that all the caulk and everything that I've already done has to be redone. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. So what I've kind of decided, is this sort of a risk, but I'm going to try to cut this to kind of get it flat or flatter. And I mean, there's hardly any that has to come off. I mean, it's really more of a 1/16 of an inch, and it's the worst of it's like right here. I was thinking about doing that with the jigsaw with a very fine blade on it, but you know, no matter what I try, it's gonna leave the edge pretty jagged. So I may just try to get this sanding block and just hand sand this down first and see how long that's going to take. It's plywood and it's end grain, so it may just take forever. I'm going to do that off camera really quick. I'm just going to take like 5 minutes and start sanding this down with a block and some 80 grit, and see if I can get that worked down, because that would produce the best finished result. Because any other way I do this, like if I got the skill saw out, that's going to leave a mess. If I get the jigsaw out, even with the fine tooth blade, that's going to leave a mess. So really, I'm just going to try the sanding, and we'll see how it goes. I'll bring it back. Alright, so this is after sanding, and it is pretty much perfect now. So that I'm super glad that I decided to do that. I figured it was going to be a lot harder or take a lot longer with the sanding, but no, not too bad. I used the 80 grit first and got it pretty close, and then I switched to 150 grit and just got it even closer. So now it's a smooth finish too. Not that we needed it to be smooth, but it's nice. And let's see what kind of damage was done to the bottom. Nothing. Yeah, so perfect. Would not have gotten a clean edge like that with any other method that I have available to me here. I mean, like I said, I could have done the table saw method, but that's just, I'm not doing that. I'm not redoing all this stuff just for that. So this worked out really well. So now we can get these two end pieces on, glued on, and drying. Alright, now we just wait for that to dry, wait for a day, and that's why I'm not doing these the front and back yet, because all these pipe clamps are kind of in the way. It'll just be easier to deal with those once this is completely done. And if you go ahead and wipe up your glue that's coming out now instead of waiting for later, it just makes it a little bit easier to deal with later. Not that it's a big deal to deal with later, it's just, to me, easier now just to take that 30 seconds to wipe it now. So no big deal. And then I just put these pieces of plywood here just to offset them off the top. That's all. So anyways, that's gonna be it for today. For me it'll be 24 hours. For you it'll be a second. So see ya tomorrow. These two end pieces are now dry. I went ahead and removed the clamps. So now I've got to get this strip cut to the same width that these are. That strip and one of those over there. Go cut both of those with my table saw, because this is all I have left of that one strip. So let's do that now. So I just took the sanding block and went through each of these just to take off all the little pieces of wood on the edge from where the saw blade was cutting. So just clean that up real quick. And just inspecting the wood and making sure everything's good. This piece has a cracked piece at the end, so this is the side that we're going to cut off and not use. In fact, go ahead and get the pencil and we can put a big X right there to remember that's the side that gets cut off, because obviously the whole piece is not needed, it's just most of it. So X down there, but the rest of the piece is good. I'm just going to go through and probably hit the edges up with the sander a little bit more just to take off any big marks from the saw. Like there's a few. There you go, you can see it there. There's just a little saw mark. So we're just going to hit that with the 150 grit and get those off, get like the sticker off. Do all that off camera right now and I'll bring you back. Alright, the front and back strips should now be ready for the glue up. What I did was I put a 45 on the corners because this is going to be like that on the corner, and so I just didn't want the corners to be a straight corner like this. I wanted that 45 on there, so that'll be pretty nice for each corner. We're also going to do something else too. Since this is a desk, I'm going to be rounding over the edge, the top edge all the way around. But that'll get done after I get these glued on and that dries, so that'll be tomorrow. So for now, let's go ahead. This should be ready for glue up. We're going to get these two glued up and that can dry for the rest of today. Alright, we are glued and clamped and ready to go. Yeah, it does look a little ridiculous with a billion clamps, but trust me, the more clamps the better in these situations, always. That is what you want. The glue coming out everywhere. That's going to be a good attachment. Plus it's got those pins, which those brad nails really aren't there to hold it on. They do hold it on a little bit, but the main thing is the glue. So that's why you've got all these clamps, so that we make sure we get a really good connection all the way down with all that glue. So once this is dry, that's never coming off of there. So, but yeah, that's why I have so many clamps, and really, with all the clamps I do have, it's still not even really enough. I mean, I make it work, but I could always use more clamps. And then I'm so glad I got these 36-inch bar clamps. I have the really long ones over there, and just a couple years ago I added these 36-inch ones to my arsenal, and they're very handy as well. You just have to be careful with those on projects like this, because they can put a ton of pressure on there, and you just can't crank down on those too hard. So just gotta be careful, that's all. So that's it for today. We'll continue on tomorrow once this has had a chance to dry. I'm gonna go and clean up some of this glue. I'm not gonna be able to get all of it, just because there's gonna be some underneath the clamps here that's kind of hard to get to. But tomorrow there'll be a lot more to do once this is dry and ready. So be a lot of sanding and a lot of cleanup. So we'll see you then in a few minutes. Ooh, I'm getting excited. It's looking like a desk. I'm really liking it. I got all the clamps off, obviously, and I'm gonna have to get this top sanded down pretty good, flatten it out, make sure it's nice, because then we're gonna dress these edges with the router here in a little bit. So let me get some sanding done. It shouldn't take too much. I just want to get this nice and flat, so that when I get the router out, it's not going to be hitting bumps or anything. So we'll get started on that now. Alright, so the surface is all flat, completely flat. There are just a few spots here where this trim was slightly above, like very slightly, like 1/16 of an inch or less in the table. So you just want to make sure all that's flattened out and perfect. And so now we're at a point where we're perfectly smooth everywhere, so that I can run a router across this edge and not hit any bumps or dips or anything like that. This is still going to require some more sanding before I put the paint on it, but it's pretty close now. But I'm going to sand it with 220 grit. This was 150 that I just did, or 120 that I just sanded it with down to this point. So it's going to get 220, but that's not going to happen until I get the routing done here in just a second. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not wearing a mask because of this right here. I just turned it off, otherwise you probably wouldn't be able to hear me. That's an air filter, and it cycles the air in here, filters out the dust. And it's a 2-stage filter. It's a very good one. So that keeps the dust down. Yeah, it does get slightly dusty with that running, but it's no big deal. If that wasn't running, yeah, I'd be wearing a mask, but because of that, I don't need a mask, which is nice. So let's get the router out and get the bits all that set up and get this top finished. Some people like to hate on Ryobi tools. I don't know. I've had good experience with them. This is a Ryobi router. I've got a Bosch router over there. And I use this one exclusively for stuff like this where I'm routing and I can't use a table router. So this, I mean, like I said, this one works good. And it's actually got some nice features, like to undo the bolt that holds the router bits in place. All you have to do is push down on this and it locks that in. Whereas a lot of other routers, you've got to use 2 wrenches to do that. So it's just an easier, convenient kind of thing. It's not like, a deal breaker or anything like to where you got to have this, but it's just one of those nice things that, and the router works well. It wasn't super expensive. I mean, this is not a professional grade. I mean, I don't know. It works good enough for what I do, and it works good. So that's all I can tell you. So I don't know. I like Ryobi stuff, but I'm not a brand fanatic. Like if you look around the shop, I've got probably 1,000 different brands. Like we've got Cobalt here, we've got Bosch Stitch there, we've got Ryobi, Porter Cable there, Craftsman there, Bosch, Hitachi. So I just buy good, stuff that's good for what I do. I look up research online and make sure that it's going to be a decent buy. But I'm not a brand enthusiast. I'll get whatever brand is going to do the job and do the job well. So, is what it is. But anyways, let's get this table routed. So when doing something like this, it's a really good idea to do a practice cut on a separate piece of wood, just to see and make sure that everything's lined up. You got your depth of the bit to where you want it and all that. So I've just got this is a strip right here, cut off of 2x4, but it's kind of like the same width and height as the pieces on our table. So it'll be a good simulation of what it's going to look like on the finished product. And then behind it, I've just got a 2x6, so that we've got a flat plane here to rest the router on all the way. Otherwise, you could be rocking it back and forth like this, and that's going to be an issue. So this way, it'll be a flat surface to test our cut on. So let's do that. Alright, so this will give us a really good idea of what the finished product will look like. And That's going to be perfect, exactly what I wanted. So it's just a 45-degree angle cut off, kind of like what I did here, except it's going to be on the edge of the table. And so it'll be really nice if you're resting your hands like on the end of the desk or whatever. It's not going to, if it's a sharp point like it is now, that'll hurt after a while. But this will make it a really nice finished edge to where it's not going to be an issue. So yeah, that's a perfect setup. So I'm gonna get ready to cut the table. Alright, and it's just as easy as that. So now we've got that edge all around. Just be careful on your corners, especially these corners, since I had put the 45s on them. Just go slow and make sure you're not, jumping around a lot, because that's an easy way to screw up your corner. Yeah, as long as you just take your time and go slow around those, it'll be fine. But yep, this will just take a little bit of sanding to kind of clean up. But other than that, this is looking good. So, and I can't remember how much I paid for that router, but it was not much. It was of course, that was years ago. That was 3 years ago. So I'm sure it's more now, but it's, no big deal. If that's all you can afford, it'll get you a long ways. So I mean, it'll be good enough. Alright, so I'm going to get some sanding done. I'm probably going to clean up a little bit of this edge, and I'll do that off camera. And then we're probably going to take the sander 220 to the top and get that cleaned up and ready. So that'll be coming up shortly. Alright, about an hour and a half of sanding. We're pretty much done. So I sanded up all these edges, the face, just made everything pretty and nice and smooth. So it is premium now. It's really nice. And this is going to look really good once it's painted. Camera would focus on it. There we go. Yeah, that's gonna be so nice. So I'm gonna get all the dust cleared out. I've already been kind of brushing it off as I go with the brush there. I'm gonna get the air gun sprayed out real good, and then we're gonna get wood filler. We're going to fill in some gaps and cracks like this here, and all the little brad nail pinholes that are kind of like there. So then we'll be ready for paint. Forgot to mention that when I was sanding all these edges, I started with 150 grit, did that all the way around, and that was to get the main shape and form how you want it, and smooth out all the, if there were any imperfections, which there were a few. There's always going to be some from the router. So smooth all that out, and then stepped up to 220 grit to kind of finish it off, make it super smooth and nice. And so that's all done with 220. The top we saw, or you saw that I did that with 220 earlier on the power sander, but I'm going to actually go back now with my sanding block and just hit that with the 220 by hand really quick, and then we can get to the wood filler and fill the holes and all that. And that's where we will leave it for today. That's going to need a full day to dry, and then once that's dry, we'll have to sand it again with the 220, clean all that up, and then we'll finally be ready for some paint, possibly. There's actually something else I'm thinking before we paint the top that I'm going to do. So, but that'll be for tomorrow or the next day. We'll see. At any rate, we'll see you then. Alright, so I took some time off camera. I got the top of the desk sanded really well with 220 grit by hand, all around the edges and the top. Got most of the wood filler smoothed out, and so then I decided to go ahead and flip it back over, and I painted 2 coats of the white on this bottom lip. So that's completely done now. This is dry, so we're about ready to flip this back over and get started on the top. Or not started, but continue on the top. But I do have some really good news, which is I found the other paint that I thought I had finished. So this is the blue paint I've used before. I used it on the kitchen cabinets that I built, on the inside of them. I thought I used it all, but actually what I had used all of was the primer, which you don't really have to have. And so this is the, I'm going to use this for the top. So I'm going to use it for like the side of this trim and the top. So that'll be awesome contrasting colors of the white, gloss white, and this blue, which is, I think it's called Jamaica Bay. Yeah, Jamaica Bay. It's kind of like a, almost like a baby blue. I like the look of it a lot. And it's also semi-gloss, not gloss. So this will be perfect contrasting to go with this gloss white, and it'll be really good for the top finish. I've actually built another table, nowhere near as nice as this one, but the same way, where the bottom was all white and then the top is blue with this same blue. and it looks really good. So let's get this table flipped over and commence with another hour of sanding. Any woodworking project requires a lot of sanding if you want it to look nice. So just keep that in mind. You'll be sanding and doing more sanding and doing more sanding. But that's part of the fun. So anyways, I'm going to get this table flipped over and then we will continue. So I just cleaned it up with the 220 grit, and it's ready to go for the final stage, which is going to be 320. So I'm about to hit the whole thing up with 320, and then we will finally be ready for some paint. So all the sanding is done, and we are ready for paint. And if you guys could feel this, it's as smooth as glass. It's so nice. It almost, I mean, it has like even a slight shine to the wood. Alright, well, let's get that paint out. Hopefully it's still good, which it should be. And we can get this first coat of blue on here. And that's the first coat completed. And it's already mostly dry, actually. I mean, the surface is. The paint is not going to be dry this quickly, but the surfaces are dry. So, I mean, that's the semi-gloss you're seeing there. It's not wet. You're never going to get this in the first coat, so don't even try. This is probably going to take 3 coats at least, I would imagine. Oh, there goes the blurry camera again. There we go. So what you want to do is keep it a very smooth coat, as smooth as possible. And that's, you can't do a heavy coat and keep it smooth, so it's got to be a thin coat. And that's why after I applied it and spread it out, I came back and lightly brushed over it just to make it very smooth. And that's what gives you a really nice finish in the end. So that'll take, like I said, probably 2 more coats at least, I would imagine. This stuff does coat very well compared to the other. This is a very, very expensive paint. So it's a Sherwin-Williams paint. It's extremely good, and it's while it does have some odor, it's nowhere near as bad as the other stuff either. That's why I can talk in here and show it to you now. I still wore a respirator while I was applying it, but it does not smell in here very bad at all. I can barely smell it. So it's a very good quality paint, but when I bought this for the kitchen cabinets, I think 2020, maybe late 2020, early 2021. I think it was $85 for this gallon. Who knows what it is now? I don't even want to look. I'm sure I would be shocked. Well, probably not shocked because everything is just ridiculous anymore. But at any rate, we will let this dry for a day, and we'll put the next coat on. And I will probably bring you back after I've put the 3rd coat on and after it's dried and once it's finalized, because this video I'm sure is pretty long at this point already. So I'm going to bring you back once it's finalized and we can see the finished result. So see you then, here in a few seconds. And as a capstone to this desk project, I created this in a separate video log series, which is basically my maker's badge that I installed on to the underside of this table. So I think that looks really nice. And here's the finished product. So this has 3 coats of that blue paint on it. The 3rd coat covered it really nicely, so I didn't think that it needed a 4th. But it looks really good. Really happy with how this turned out. And it's got a nice shine to it. Not too shiny. Let's see, let's get a look at the edge here. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. Well, now all that's left is to get this inside. Alright, and here we are, in place. I might move it out further this way, just depends, but yeah, that was real fun. It's moving by myself. Couple dings, nothing too bad, but yeah, it's just impossible to like not hit it a couple times when I was moving it. Is what it is, but it survived. Also, no rocking. And that's without modifying anything, so measurements were right. So that's good. So yeah, it's I'm happy. Very happy. It's a nice looking desk. And I knew it was going to be slightly taller than this desk, and that's just because we used these legs that were already cut and created for a different purpose. And I didn't want to cut those down or trim them any more than they already were. And so that's just, it's like 3/4 of an inch taller than the other desk. No big deal. So, that's it. Desk is done. Looks good. And this desk is going to be something that should even outlive me. So, it should be around for a long time. And with that, I thank you guys for watching. This has been a really, really fun project. And we will catch you on the next one. Take care. Alright, well, this project's a wrap. And I've really enjoyed working on this desk. It's been a really fun project for me, and I'm glad you guys were along for the ride and each step of the way. So, hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, we'll be doing some more awesome projects in the future. So, see you on the next one. Take care.